So what would be our greatest common factor? What can I divide out of everything? 4x squared. Good. Let's do that. Now this is a 4th degree, which means that I'm looking for 4 answers. So I like to write that out. So when I take out that 4x squared, I have x squared minus 2x minus 8. Go ahead and factor that down. And you need two numbers that multiply to be negative 8, but add to negative 2. Yeah, positive 2 and negative 4. Good job. And then we take out our GCFs. And we are left with 4x squared times x plus 2 times x minus 4. So let's set all three of those equal to 0. And let's solve all three. And because this is an x squared, this answer is going to count for 2. So when I solve for x squared equals 0, I'm going to divide it by 4. And then take the square root. So x equals 0 actually counts for 2 answers, but you don't have to write that twice. But it's a double root. And then we subtract the 2. And we add 4. Okay, I always like to make my own graph, so I'm going to make my own. So let's make our x and y plane. And plot our points. Put a point at positive 4. Put a point at negative 2. And put a point at 0. So for this one, see how this is an x squared factor? It's actually going to bounce off the 0. And then it's going to go through at my other 2. So the graph is going to go through, and then it bounces off the 0. Let's talk about the arrows. What do you think is going to happen in the arrows? First of all, will they be the same direction or opposite directions? Same, because it's a x to the 4th. And will they go up or will they go down? Up, because it's a positive 4. So go ahead and put your 2 up arrows. So to finish it out, it's going to come down, it's going to go through, make a U-turn, but it's going to bounce off this one. It's not going to go through at the 0. So it's going to come through, make a U-turn, bounce, come back down, and then come back up. And we don't know where it makes the U-turn. We would have to plug in a point to figure out where it makes the U-turn. But the main thing that I'm looking for on the final is the behavior. So you should know that it bounces off the 0, but it goes through at the other 2 places. And you should also know that the arrows are going up because of the leading coefficient. Okay, so our last 2 questions, we're going to practice long division. So in your Agile Mind book, go to page 292. And we're going to do long division. So let's set up our long division. So when you're doing long division, we're going to divide our first terms. So take the 3x squared cubed, take 3x cubed and divide it by 3x. And you get x squared, put that at the top. And now take that x squared and multiply it by the 3x plus 1. And you line that up over here. And what do you have to do with the signs? Before you add, you got to switch them both. We're going to do a change. So this becomes negative and that second one becomes negative. When you add, they both cancel out. So we're going to bring down the next two. And repeat. So divide your leading terms. Take 75x and divide that by 3x. Now take that 25, multiply that by 3x plus 1. And you get 75x plus 25. Bring that over. Change both signs, and we end with a 0. So let's take what we have at the top and set that equal to 0 and solve it out. Now, if this was x squared minus 25, we would be able to factor it. But this is x squared plus 25. So this is not factorable. So the first thing you want to do is subtract 25. And then you want to take the square root. So x equals the square root of negative 25, which should be broken down to negative 1 times 25. So what is the square root of negative 1? I. And what's the square root of 25? 5. Good. So your last two answers are plus and minus 5i. So let's write our three solutions. So we have x equals 5i, x equals negative 5i, and then let's find our 3x plus 1, set that equal to 0 to get your third solution. Go ahead and solve that. Oops, I didn't mean to write that too far over. Let me bring that over a little bit. All right, go ahead and solve that for x to get your third solution. Remember that an odd degree has to have one real solution. So we can't have, if it's an odd degree, we have to have one real solution. So this has one real and two imaginary. So when we solve that, we get x equals -1/3 as my third answer. So these are all three solutions. So this one has only one x-intercept, and that's at the 1/3. And when it makes its U-turn, notice that it doesn't come down low enough to touch the x-axis more than once. So when you make your sketch, you have to sketch one that only crosses the x-axis once. Okay, we have one more for today, and then we will start getting ready for our final. Let's look at question number 8, and we're going to do long division again. So let's set it up. 4x minus 3. So let's go ahead and do our long division. Divide the first terms. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to see if you can figure out if you can make it to the end by doing long division. So go ahead and do long division, and then we'll go through it together. So we're going to start by dividing our first terms. And that gives us x squared. Put that on the top. And then you're going to take that x squared and multiply it by 4x minus 3, which is going to give you 4x cubed minus 3x squared. Before you add, you have to change both signs. So this changes to a negative, this one changes to a positive. When you add, you get 8x squared. Bring down one at a time and repeat. So you have 8x squared divided by 4x, which is 2x. Put that on the top. And then you take 2x times 4x minus 3. And that gives you 8x squared minus 6x. Change both signs. This becomes a negative and this becomes a positive. Add. And that's 68x minus 51. So use your calculators. Take 68x divided by 4x. And is that 17? $17 goes at the top. 17 times 4x minus 3 is 68x minus 51. Change, and we end it with a 0. So now let's do the quadratic formula, because this is prime. We don't have any numbers that multiply to 17 and add to 2. So let's do our quadratic formula. I'll write it at the top of the screen. So b squared minus 4ac. So b squared would be 2 squared minus 4 times A times C. Go ahead, type that in your calculators. See what you get. So did you get negative 64? All right, so let's go ahead and we take out the negative 1. So my discriminant, this is my discriminant, not the entire quadratic formula. So we have 8i. So now we're ready to do the entire quadratic formula, which would be x equals the opposite of b. So b is positive 2. So it would be negative 2 plus or minus 8i all over 2 times 1, which is 2. So that would be a sufficient answer. And then my third answer, set the factor that they gave you, 4x minus 3, set that equal to 0. And that's your third answer. Go ahead and do that. Set that equal to 0. And you have all 3 answers. Now this can be reduced, but I would not take off if you did not reduce it. But you could also write this. Both of these are acceptable answers. So Unit 6 is closing on Friday. Make sure you have all 6 of your homework assignments submitted. Go ahead, take out your devices. You have your 6 homework assignments that are due no later than this Friday. And there's also review guides due every day.